The moment I stepped into the baker's grand foyer, I knew I was in for a battle. The air was thick with the scent of lemon polish and judgment. My soon-to-be mother-in-law June stood at the top of the sweeping staircase, her eyes narrowing as they locked onto me. "So you're the girl who's ensnared my Travis," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. I forced a smile, determined not to let her see how much her words stung. "It's lovely to meet you, Mrs. Baker. I'm Eliza." Travis squeezed my hand reassuringly as we ascended the stairs. I could feel June's gaze burning into me with each step. "Mother, please," Travis said, his tone a mix of exasperation and pleading. "We've talked about this. Eliza is my fiancée, and I love her." June's lips tightened into a thin line. "Of course, dear. I'm simply getting to know the woman who's captured your heart." We followed her into an opulent sitting room where Travis's father, Robert, was waiting. He stood and greeted me with a warm smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I could tell he was trying to diffuse the tension, but even he seemed wary of his wife's mood. "Welcome, Eliza," Robert said, gesturing for us to sit. "We've heard so much about you." "All good things, I hope," I replied, attempting to lighten the mood. June sniffed. "That remains to be seen." Travis shot his mother a warning look. "Mother, please, we're here to celebrate our engagement, not interrogate Eliza." "Oh, but darling," June said, her voice sickeningly sweet, "I simply want to know more about the woman who's going to be part of our family. Is that so wrong?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "What would you like to know, Mrs. Baker?" June's eyes glittered dangerously. "Well, for starters, what exactly are your intentions with my son?" "My intentions?" I repeated, caught off guard by the directness of her question. "Yes, dear, your intentions. Surely you must have some beyond simply marrying into our family." Travis interjected. "Mother, that's enough. Eliza and I love each other. That's all that matters." June waved her hand dismissively. "Love is all well and good, but there are other considerations. Tell me, Eliza, what do your parents do?" I swallowed hard, knowing this was a sore spot. "My parents passed away when I was young. I was raised by my aunt." "I see," June said, her tone implying she saw far more than I was comfortable with. "And your profession?" "I'm a social worker," I replied, lifting my chin slightly. "I help children in the foster care system." June's eyebrows arched. "How noble, and not very lucrative, I imagine." "Money isn't everything, Mother," Travis said firmly. "No, but it certainly helps," June retorted. She turned back to me, her gaze piercing. "And you're certain it's Travis you're in love with, not his position?" The room fell silent. I could feel the blood rushing to my face, a mix of anger and humiliation coursing through me. Travis stood abruptly, his fists clenched at his sides. "That's enough," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "We're leaving. Now." As we made our hasty exit, I caught a glimpse of Robert's face. He looked torn, apologetic, but said nothing as his wife smirked triumphantly. Once outside, Travis pulled me into a fierce hug. "I'm so sorry, Eliza. I had no idea she would be this awful." I buried my face in his chest, fighting back tears. "It's okay. We'll get through this." But as we drove away from the Baker mansion, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a long and painful battle. June's words echoed in my mind, planting seeds of doubt and fear. I loved Travis with all my heart, but was our love strong enough to withstand the storm that was his mother? Little did I know, this was only the first skirmish in what would become a war for my happiness, my dignity, and my place in the family I was marrying into. The weeks following our disastrous first meeting with Travis's parents were a whirlwind of wedding preparations and forced smiles. I tried to push the memory of June's hostility to the back of my mind, but her words haunted me like a persistent shadow. "Honey, are you sure you want peonies for the centerpieces?" Travis asked, snapping me out of my thoughts. We were at the florist's, surrounded by a rainbow of blooms. I nodded, forcing a smile. "They're perfect." Travis frowned, sensing my distraction. "Is everything okay? You've been quiet lately." I hesitated, torn between honesty and protecting him from the truth about his mother. "I'm fine, just stressed about the wedding." Before he could press further, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and felt my stomach drop. It was June. "I should take this," I mumbled, stepping outside the shop. "Eliza, dear." June's saccharine voice dripped through the phone. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." I gritted my teeth. "Not at all, Mrs. Baker. What can I do for you?" Oh, I just wanted to discuss the guest list. I've taken the liberty of adding a few names. I'm sure you won't mind. My free hand clenched into a fist. Actually, Travis and I have already finalized the list. We're trying to keep it intimate. June's tone sharpened. Intimate? Don't be ridiculous. This is a Baker family wedding. We have appearances to maintain. I understand, but no, I don't think you do. June cut me off. Let me be clear. This wedding isn't just about you and Travis. It's about our family's reputation, and I won't have you tarnishing it with your quaint ideas. I felt my cheeks burn with anger and humiliation. Mrs. Baker, I appreciate your input, but Travis and I... Travis will understand, she interrupted again. He knows the importance of family, unlike you, apparently. The words stung like a slap. I struggled to keep my voice steady. I'll discuss it with Travis and get back to you. See that you do, June said coldly before hanging up. I stood there, phone clutched in my trembling hand, fighting back tears. How could I tell Travis that his mother was steamrolling over our wedding plans, that she was treating me like an intruder in my own marriage? Eliza? Travis's voice startled me. He was standing in the doorway, concern etched on his face. Was that my mother? I nodded, unable to speak. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. What did she want this time? I hesitated, then decided on a half-truth. She wants to add some people to the guest list. Travis groaned. Of course she does. Don't worry, I'll handle it. As we walked back to the car, I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. I should tell him the whole truth, how his mother was making me feel. But the words stuck in my throat. I didn't want to come between Travis and his family. I didn't want to be the cause of any tension. That night, as we lay in bed, Travis rolled over and pulled me close. I'm sorry about my mother, he whispered. I know she can be difficult. I nestled into his embrace, grateful for his warmth. It's okay. I'm sure she'll come around eventually. But even as I said the words, I knew they were a lie. June's hostility was growing, not diminishing, and I was caught in the middle, trying to balance my love for Travis with the increasing strain of his mother's disapproval. As I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. June's interference with the wedding was a clear message. She wasn't going to make this easy. And I was left wondering how much more I could endure before something had to give. The shrill ring of my phone jolted me awake. I fumbled for it in the dark, squinting at the bright screen. 3:17 a.m., unknown number. My stomach clenched as I answered. Hello? I whispered, careful not to wake Travis. You think you've won, don't you? June's voice, cold and sharp, sliced through the silence. I sat up, fully alert now. Mrs. Baker? What's wrong? Don't play innocent with me, she hissed. I know what you're after. You won't get away with it. My heart raced. I don't understand. What are you talking about? My son, my family, our reputation. You're nothing but a gold digger trying to worm your way into our lives. I felt like I'd been slapped. That's not true. I love Travis. Love, she scoffed. What would you know about love? You're just using him. But mark my words, I won't let you destroy what I've built. The line went dead. I sat there, phone clutched in my trembling hand, trying to process what had just happened. This wasn't just disapproval anymore. This was outright hostility. Over the next few weeks, the calls continued, sometimes at night, sometimes during the day. June's accusations grew more vicious, her threats more pointed. She called me a whore, a con artist, a leech. Each word chipped away at my confidence, my happiness. I tried to hide it from Travis, but the strain was taking its toll. I lost weight, developed dark circles under my eyes, my smile became forced, my laughter hollow. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching TV, Travis turned to me, his face etched with concern. Eliza, what's going on? And don't say nothing. I know something's wrong. I opened my mouth, ready to deny it again, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, to my horror, I burst into tears. Travis pulled me close, stroking my hair. Hey, it's okay. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. Just talk to me. I wanted to tell him everything, about his mother's calls, her accusations, the constant barrage of hatred, but I couldn't bring myself to shatter his image of his family. It's just wedding stress, I lied, hating myself for it. And work's been tough lately. Travis didn't look convinced, but he nodded. Maybe we should postpone the wedding, give ourselves more time. No, I said too quickly. The thought of prolonging this nightmare was unbearable. No, I don't want to wait. I love you, Travis. I want to be your wife. He smiled, but his eyes were still worried. I love you too, more than anything. You know that, right? I nodded, burying my face in his chest to hide my tears. The next morning, I woke to find Travis already gone, a note on his pillow saying he'd been called into work early. I was making coffee when my phone rang. Unknown number. My hand shook as I answered. Listen carefully. June's voice was low, menacing. I've tried to reason with you, but you insist on pushing forward with this farce of a wedding. So let me be clear. If you don't leave Travis, if you don't end this engagement, I will make your life a living hell. I will turn everyone against you. I will destroy you. I gripped the counter, feeling dizzy. Mrs. Baker, please. You have until the end of the week to make your decision. Choose wisely. The line went dead. I sank to the floor, my whole body shaking. This couldn't be happening. How had it come to this? As I sat there, surrounded by the shattered pieces of my happiness, I realized I had a choice to make. I could walk away, spare myself the pain and humiliation, or I could stand my ground and fight for the man I loved. But as June's threats echoed in my mind, I wondered if I had the strength to face what was coming. And more importantly, would my love for Travis be enough to withstand the storm that his mother was determined to unleash? I stared out the car window, my stomach churning as we approached the Baker mansion. Travis and I were spending the weekend with his parents, and despite my protests, he had insisted we couldn't cancel. They're family, he'd said, oblivious to the torment his mother had been putting me through. As we pulled up the driveway, June emerged from the front door, her smile as artificial as the pearls around her neck. Welcome, dears, she called out, her eyes cold despite her cheery tone. Travis squeezed my hand. It'll be fine, he whispered, but I couldn't shake the dread settling in my bones. The afternoon dragged on, filled with tense small talk and pointed remarks from June. By dinner time, I was exhausted from the effort of maintaining a facade of normalcy. Eliza, dear, June said as we finished our meal, would you help me clear the table? I nodded, following her into the kitchen. As soon as we were alone, her demeanor changed. I thought I made myself clear, she hissed, slamming a plate into the sink. You were supposed to end this charade. I flinched but stood my ground. Mrs. Baker, I love Travis. I'm not going anywhere. Her eyes narrowed. We'll see about that. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of veiled insults and uncomfortable silences. By the time we retired to our guest room, I was desperate for a moment of peace. I'm going to take a quick shower, I told Travis, grabbing my toiletries. The hot water was a blessed relief, washing away some of the tension, but as I reached for my towel, I realized with a sinking heart that I'd forgotten to bring a change of clothes. I wrapped the towel around myself and cracked open the bathroom door. Travis? I called out softly. No response. The bedroom was empty. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the hallway, intending to make a quick dash to our room. But as I rounded the corner, I collided with June. Her eyes raked over me, disgust evident in her expression. What do you think you're doing, parading around like that? I'm sorry, I stammered, clutching the towel tighter. I forgot my clothes. Forgot? She scoffed. Or perhaps you're trying to seduce my husband now, too? I gasped, shocked by the accusation. Of course not. I would never. Save your lies, June snapped. I won't have you flaunting yourself in my house. The bathroom down here is off limits to you for the rest of your stay. Use the one in the pool house if you must. But it's freezing outside, I protested, shivering at the thought. Then I suggest you hold it, she said coldly, before turning on her heel and marching away. I stood there, humiliated and shaking, tears threatening to spill over. This was a new low, even for June. How could she be so cruel? I hurried back to our room, relief washing over me as I saw Travis had returned. But as I entered, his expression changed from smile to concern. Eliza, what's wrong? You're shaking. I opened my mouth, ready to finally tell him everything. The calls, the threats, and now this latest indignity. But June's voice floated up from downstairs, saccharine sweet as she called out, Travis, darling, could you help your father with something in the study? Travis hesitated, looking torn between responding to his mother and comforting me. Go, I said softly, forcing a smile. I'm fine, just a bit chilly from the shower. He nodded, still looking uncertain, and left the room. As soon as the door closed behind him, I collapsed onto the bed, silent sobs racking my body. This couldn't go on. June's behavior was escalating, becoming more overt and cruel. I couldn't keep protecting Travis from the truth about his mother. Something had to give. As I lay there, curled up and shivering, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I would confront June. I would demand an end to this torment, even if it meant risking everything I had with Travis. Because if I didn't stand up for myself now, I feared I might lose myself entirely in the process. Little did I know, my confrontation with June would set in motion a chain of events that would change all our lives forever. I woke up early the next morning, my resolve to confront June warring with the knot of anxiety in my stomach. As I crept downstairs, hoping to gather my thoughts over a cup of coffee, I heard hushed voices coming from the kitchen. "Can't keep treating her like this, June." It was Robert, his usually gentle tone tinged with frustration. I froze, my heart racing. Were they talking about me? "I'm only trying to protect our son," June hissed back. "That girl is not right for Travis. She'll ruin everything we've built." "You're the one who's going to ruin everything if you don't stop this madness," Robert replied. I leaned closer, barely breathing. "Madness?" June scoffed. "I'm the only one seeing clearly. She's after our money, our status. Travis is too blinded by her act to see it." "Enough." Robert's voice rose sharply. "Eliza is a kind, hard-working young woman who loves our son. Your behavior is inexcusable." There was a clatter of dishes, then June's cold reply, "You're as fooled as Travis. But mark my words, I'll make her show her true colors. One way or another, I'll get rid of her." I stumbled back, my mind reeling. June's hostility ran deeper than I'd imagined. And Robert? He was defending me? Lost in thought, I didn't notice Robert leaving the kitchen until we nearly collided in the hallway. "Eliza!" he exclaimed, surprise and concern flashing across his face. "Are you all right? You look pale." I opened my mouth, intending to make an excuse, but instead, weeks of pent-up anguish came pouring out. "I heard you and June talking," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. "Mr. Baker, I swear I'm not after Travis's money. I love him, truly. I would never." Robert's face softened. He gently guided me to a nearby sitting room, closing the door behind us. "Eliza, my dear, I know. I've seen how you look at Travis, how happy you make him. June's behavior is inexcusable." Tears welled up in my eyes. "She hates me," I choked out. "The things she's said, the way she's treated me, I don't know what to do anymore." Robert's brow furrowed. "What do you mean? Has June done something specific?" The floodgates opened. I told him everything. The threatening phone calls, the accusations, the incident with the bathroom. With each revelation, Robert's expression grew darker. "I had no idea it had gone this far," he said when I finished, his voice heavy with regret. "Eliza, I'm so sorry. This ends now. I'll talk to June. Make her see reason." Hope flickered in my chest, but doubt quickly extinguished it. "I don't think that will work," I said softly. "She seems determined to get rid of me, no matter what." Robert was quiet for a moment, then he squeezed my hand. "Then we'll tell Travis. He needs to know what's been happening." Fear gripped me. But what if he doesn't believe me? What if it tears the family apart? "Eliza," Robert said firmly, "you are family now, and families protect each other. Travis loves you. He'll believe you." As we sat there, the weight of the decision before me felt overwhelming. Tell Travis and risk shattering his relationship with his mother? Or continue suffering in silence, letting June's cruelty eat away at my happiness? Robert seemed to sense my internal struggle. "You don't have to decide right now," he said gently. "But know that you're not alone in this anymore. Whatever you choose, I'll support you." I nodded, a mix of gratitude and trepidation washing over me. As I left the room, I caught a glimpse of June watching from the top of the stairs. Her eyes narrowed in suspicion. In that moment, I knew. There was no more hiding, no more enduring in silence. It was time to stand up for myself, for my love, for my future. Whatever the consequences, I had to confront June and end this torment once and for all. Little did I know, the confrontation that was coming would change everything, in ways I could never have imagined. My heart pounded as I stood at the top of the stairs, watching Robert march purposefully towards June in the living room. After our conversation, he had insisted on confronting her immediately. I hadn't wanted Travis to find out this way, but events were spiraling out of my control. "June, we need to talk." Robert's voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. June looked up from her needlework, her eyes narrowing as they flicked between Robert and me. What's this about? It's about your treatment of Eliza, Robert said, his usually gentle demeanor replaced by steely resolve. It ends now. June's face hardened. I don't know what lies that girl has been telling you, but... No lies, June, Robert cut her off. I've seen it with my own eyes, the calls, the threats, forbidding her from using the bathroom. It's cruel and it's beneath you. I watched June's face pale, then flush with anger. You don't understand, she hissed. She's not right for Travis. She'll ruin everything. The only one ruining things is you, Robert shot back. Their voices rose, the argument escalating rapidly. I stood frozen, torn between intervening and fleeing. Suddenly, Travis appeared beside me, his face a mask of confusion. What's going on? He asked, his eyes widening as he took in the scene below. Before I could respond, June's voice rang out, shrill and accusatory. She's turned you against me, Robert. Can't you see she's manipulating all of you? Mom? Travis called out, descending the stairs. Dad? What's happening? The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at Travis. June's face crumpled into a mask of victimhood. Oh, Travis, she cried. Your father and Eliza, they're ganging up on me, after everything I've done for this family. I couldn't stay silent any longer. That's not true, Travis, I said, my voice shaking. Your mother has been... Been what? June interrupted, her eyes flashing dangerously. Go on, tell him your lies. Travis looked between us, bewildered. Someone explain what's going on now. Robert stepped forward, placing a hand on Travis's shoulder. Son, your mother has been mistreating Eliza, making threatening phone calls, forbidding her from using the bathroom, accusing her of being after our money. Travis's face drained of color. What? No, that can't be true. Mom would never... It is true, I said softly, descending the stairs to stand beside him. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I didn't want to come between you and your family. June let out a harsh laugh. Oh, that's rich. You've done nothing but try to come between us from the moment you arrived. That's enough, Robert's voice boomed through the room. June, you need to admit what you've done and apologize to Eliza. June's face contorted with rage. Apologize? Never. I was protecting our son from this gold-digging harlot. The slap echoed through the room before I even realized what had happened. Travis stood there, his hand still raised, staring at his mother in shock. Travis! June gasped, her hand flying to her reddening cheek. How could you? Travis's voice was low, trembling with anger. How could you treat Eliza like this? Your own daughter-in-law? June's eyes darted around the room, looking for an ally and finding none. I was only trying to protect you, she stammered. By abusing the woman I love? Travis shook his head, disgust evident in his voice. You're not the mother I thought you were. As June crumpled onto the sofa, sobbing dramatically, I felt a strange mix of vindication and sorrow. The truth was out, but at what cost? Travis turned to me, his eyes filled with anguish. Eliza, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Can you ever forgive me for not seeing what was happening? I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. There's nothing to forgive. You didn't know. As we stood there, surrounded by the wreckage of long-held family dynamics, I realized this was far from over. June's mask had slipped, revealing the depths of her cruelty, but I knew she wouldn't go down without a fight. The storm had broken, but the true battle was just beginning. The room crackled with tension as June's sobs subsided into seething silence. I could feel her eyes boring into me, filled with a hatred that made my skin crawl. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't afraid. I was angry. Enough, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. It's time we talked, June. Really talked. June's head snapped up, her tear-streaked face twisting into a sneer. There's nothing to talk about. You've won, haven't you? Turned my husband and son against me. This isn't about winning, I replied, taking a step towards her. It's about the truth. And the truth is, you've been cruel and manipulative from the moment we met. Travis squeezed my hand, his presence giving me strength. Mom, why? Why would you do this to Eliza? To us? June's eyes darted between us, her composure cracking. I was protecting you, Travis. This girl, she's not one of us. She'll never understand our world, our responsibilities. Your world? I scoffed, years of pent-up frustration boiling over. You mean a world of judgment and cruelty? Of looking down on others? That's not a world I want any part of, and it's not the world Travis wants either. June leapt to her feet, her face contorted with rage. You insolent little... That's enough, Robert's voice boomed, silencing the room. June, you need to listen. Really listen. For a moment it seemed like June might lash out again, but something in Robert's tone made her pause. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I love your son, June. Not his money, not his status, him. And I've endured your abuse, your threats, your manipulation, because I thought that's what I had to do to be part of this family, but I see now that was a mistake. Travis stepped forward, his arm wrapping protectively around my waist. Eliza is my family now, Mom, and if you can't accept that, if you can't treat her with respect and kindness, then what? June hissed, her eyes narrowing. Then you'll lose me, Travis said softly, the pain evident in his voice, because I won't choose between the woman I love and a mother who can't see past her own prejudices. The color drained from June's face. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. You don't mean that, she whispered. He does, Robert interjected, moving to stand beside us. And so do I, June. This behavior ends now, or you'll lose us all. June's gaze darted between us, the reality of her situation sinking in. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling, and she knew it. I didn't mean, she stammered, her voice small and uncertain. Yes, you did, I said, my tone firm but not unkind. You meant every cruel word, every hurtful action. But it stops now. We're giving you a choice, June. Be part of our family, all of us, or lose it entirely. The silence that followed was deafening. June stood there, her shoulders slumped, looking older and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how to fix this. Start by apologizing, Travis said, and then listen. Really listen to Eliza, to all of us. Try to understand why your actions were so hurtful. June's eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw a glimmer of something other than contempt. Was it remorse? Uncertainty? I'm sorry, she said, the words sounding foreign on her tongue. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm sorry. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of June's carefully constructed facade, I realized we were at a turning point. The old dynamics were shattered, but what would rise from the ashes? I took a deep breath, knowing that the hardest part was yet to come. Forgiveness, understanding, rebuilding trust, it would be a long and difficult road. But as I looked at Travis, at Robert, even at the broken figure of June, I knew it was a road worth taking. The storm had passed, but the real work of healing was just beginning. 6 months had passed since that fateful confrontation, and the world had shifted on its axis. I stood in the kitchen of our new home, watching Travis and Robert laugh as they attempted to assemble a crib. The sight filled me with a warmth I never thought possible after everything we'd been through. The doorbell rang, and I felt a familiar knot of anxiety form in my stomach. Taking a deep breath, I went to answer it. June stood on the porch, looking smaller and more subdued than I'd ever seen her. Gone were the designer clothes and perfectly coiffed hair. Instead, she wore simple jeans and a blouse, her hands rough from manual labor. "Hello, Eliza," she said softly. "May I come in?" I nodded, stepping aside to let her enter. As we walked to the living room, I could feel the tension radiating off her. "Travis, Robert," I called out. "June's here." The men appeared, their faces a mix of caution and hope. Travis moved to stand beside me, his hand finding mine. June looked at each of us in turn, her eyes lingering on the visible swell of my belly. I wanted to see you all before the baby comes," she said, her voice wavering. "To apologize again, and to tell you about some changes in my life." We sat, an uneasy silence falling over the room. June took a deep breath and began to speak. "After everything that happened, I did a lot of soul-searching. I realized how toxic I'd become, how my actions were driven by fear and a misguided sense of superiority. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I behaved the way I did." She paused, her eyes meeting mine. "Eliza, I can never undo the pain I caused you, but I want you to know how deeply sorry I am. I was wrong about you, about everything." I felt tears prick my eyes, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. "Thank you, June. That means a lot." June turned to Robert and Travis. "I've hurt you both so much. I understand why you needed it to distance yourselves from me. Robert, I don't blame you for the divorce. It was the wake-up call I needed." Robert nodded, his expression softening slightly. "I'm glad you're getting help, June." "I am," she replied. "And I've made other changes, too. I've been working at the factory downtown. It's hard work, but it's honest. For the first time in my life, I'm earning my own way. Travis leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Mom, you didn't have to do that. We could have helped. June held up a hand, stopping him. No, Travis. I needed to do this, to understand the value of hard work, to see the world beyond our privileged bubble. It's been humbling and enlightening. As I listened to June speak, I felt a shift within me. The anger and resentment I'd been carrying began to dissolve, replaced by a cautious hope. June, I said, my voice thick with emotion, I won't pretend the past didn't happen, but I believe in second chances. If you're willing to continue this journey, to truly be a part of our family, all of us, then I'm willing to try. June's eyes filled with tears. You would do that? After everything? Travis squeezed my hand, a proud smile on his face. We all would, Mom, but it has to be different this time. No more manipulation, no more cruelty, just honesty and love. June nodded, wiping her eyes. I promise. I want to be better, to be the mother and grandmother your child deserves. As if on cue, the baby kicked. I gasped, placing a hand on my belly. Without thinking, I reached for June's hand and placed it next to mine. Her eyes widened as she felt the movement. Oh, she breathed, a genuine smile breaking across her face. In that moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman June could be, the woman she was trying to become. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but as I looked around at my family, Travis, Robert, and yes, even June, I knew we had the strength to face whatever came our way. The storm had passed, leaving behind a landscape forever changed, but from the wreckage, something new and beautiful was beginning to grow. A family, redefined and strengthened by adversity, ready to embrace the future with open hearts and minds. As June's hand rested on my belly, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The journey had been long and painful, but here in this moment I knew it had all been worth it. We had fought, we had endured, and now finally we were healing.